can say that sobriety is my greatest weapon, but to tell you the truth, drugs are probably the only reason I haven't killed myself.
Drugs are probably the only reason I haven't killed myself, said Rue, a character from the TV show Euphoria. Now in the show, Rue is actually a 17-year-old girl who suffers from addiction, specifically drug use, due to the fact that she was experimenting on drugs when she was feeling stressed from her struggles. But we have to ask ourselves, how can a 17-year-old be portrayed as a drug addict at such a young age? Assalamualaikum everyone, my name is Nusram Rumsli from class MMC 1101B. And today, my talk will be about the exposure of drugs to teenagers. In this topic, I'll be talking about two things. Firstly, I will talk about the factors and ways on teenagers being introduced to drugs, and second, the cause and effects of teenagers abusing drugs at their age. Over the last years, drugs have been developed to treat or control illnesses. But as the years goes by, drugs are being promoted as something fun or a form of escapism. Although there are parents who take initiatives in being responsible to keep their children intact, it is much more easier to introduce drugs to young audiences in this modern age. For example, if you open social media such as TikTok, you can clearly see the trends and hashtags that promotes drugs use as something fun. Trends and hashtags such as hashtag stoner talk or hashtag high clearly promotes the use of drugs such as weed. In one of the videos, you can clearly see that a person is trying to show how to smoke weed in their bedroom secretly, or how a group of friends are trying weed and saying how they look so fun in it. Although not many content are posted in these hashtags, it is still easy for people to just search up and see for themselves. Drugs can also be introduced by friends. For example, how many people who are watching this video actually know who their friends are friends with or who their children are friends with? If your answer is no, then you have to face the facts that we won't really know who they are unless we ask them. Because your children can be hanging out with drug addicts for all we know. So when your child is saying, "I'm going out," is actually meaning that they're going to take drugs at the back of an alleyway. Drug use can occur among friends when the person who doesn't want to do it is being peer pressured by everyone else. This is because in a friend group, if you don't agree on doing something that everyone agrees on, you are isolated and not accepted in the friend group. So in order to please everybody and make everybody happy and be accepted by them, they'd rather do something that they don't want to do than losing friends. And that is a very dangerous mindset. Seeing as how parents would usually buy prescription drugs to store in their cabinet for emergency uses, teenagers who are curious to experiment on drugs would take advantage of the situation and use them. Because a study conducted in 2011 shows that there was a rise of case of dextromethorphan abuse by 15-year-olds and 19-year-olds in the 2000s and 2010s. When teenagers consume drugs to the point they become addicted, it can cause a big impact in their lives. For example, they become too dependent on drugs for fun and happiness, which can lead to them having no real-life connections or relationships. It was studied that the reason to this is because addiction makes it hard to maintain trust, respect, and open communications. Because when you become an addict, the society that we know would usually neglect people like them due to seeing them as a burden for not fitting in society's norms. So imagine, it will make it worse for teenagers who suffers from drug abuse to be isolated from society when they're at the age of growing up. When teenage addicts goes untreated, the worst thing that can happen to them is overdosing. This is because as they feel rejected by society, they become more depressed and use drugs as a reality escape. By neglecting them, we're feeding onto their addiction to the point they won't even care if they're dying. For example, in this clip from the movie Perfect High, it shows a good example how easy it is for teenagers to be carried away by drugs and overdosing just for the sake of fun. Now imagine if that was your child. How would you react seeing them dying at the back of their seat just for the sake of fun and having fun with their friends? What would you do? Drugs can also have an effect on students' grades in school. This is because teenagers who are introduced to drugs and later abuse it would rather spend their time getting high than focusing on what is really important to them, such as grades, studying, school, university, and such. When this happens and they neglect everything, this could cause them to have a very terrible future ahead of them. Because in the adult world, nobody wants to hire an addict or a recovering addict at fact because they are seen as incompetent and could tarnish the company's name. And universities would usually kick out or not accept drug addicts or people who have drugs in the past due to the fact that they are seen as someone who can really tarnish their name and bring their school's name down. So, as teenagers and parents, we should take into account that drugs not only kill people but also ruin their lives. What good would we be into setting an example as teenagers ourselves to younger audiences that drugs are fun to take? To conclude my speech, I hope the points that was elaborated and talked through gives an enlightenment on how dangerous substance abuse is. No matter what age, we should take initiatives to break the chains of addiction. To have a better community, we need to be a better version of ourselves. Because if not us, then who? So thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a very good day.